Well, greetings. How are you?
Hiya, Gary. What's cooking?
Are we going to be the only pupils on here?
Yeah. Oh no, Dick and Barbara. But if we kept it to 5, what would be bad about that?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hey,
It's
Barbara,
I've had a chance to look at the book. It's really it's a nice Machzor.
do you have the one with the larger print? Because it's huge.
No, I don't. I heard the whole book is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my new glasses today. I'm a little annoyed.
Oh,
They don't seem much better to me.
it took me a while. I got a new pair, and it took me a while to adjust to them.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that's going to be it. Look, I know they changed the prescription. I mean, they're not going to give me back the same prescription. It just doesn't. Well, I don't know. I'm looking at you right now, and I'm looking with a level head, and you look pretty good. All right, you're not blurry. Okay. Before to see you, I had to be right out of the bottom. I had so little left there that worked.
Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hello there, Barbara.
How are you?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Gail. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Who's coming? Are you all coming to the Mac brunch?
Oh, you know what? I need to register. I am. Yeah, I just saw that come through today. Yes.
Yeah, I want you to come and bring greetings from the synagogue.
Okay.
All right, Barbara, are you and Dick coming? Are you on the list
Are we on the list for what?
for the brunch?
I don't know. I asked Dick if he had sent it in. He said he thought he had. Addie?
No.
Okay, we will.
But you are going to come. Good.
Huh?
And what about Joe? Are you going to come?
No,
You're not?
we have a play to go to.
A play?
Yeah,
Oh, well, that sounds interesting.
When is it, Gail? Tell me again.
It's May 18th. It's September 18th. It's a week from next Sunday.
Okay, maybe.
What?
Hi, Deborah. How are
Hi,
you?
Deborah.
Hi, yeah, hello, everybody. Doing great. Good to see everybody.
Hi.
Everybody doing well?
Yes, thank you.
Are these one-off sessions or you have to go to all of them?
It's
No,
mandatory.
it's a one-timer.
One?
It's each one is a complete session.
Oh, good.
No, Gail, you have to go to all of them.
What?
You have to go to all of them.
You have to go to all of them? I don't know if I'll be here for all of them.
I'm leaving. Hey, Barbara.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey, Barbara.
Hi, Gary. Good to see
Have
you
y'all
again.
looked-
Huh?
Have y'all looked through the book? We just got ours today.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Is it? Great.
I got
I got there late last week, but I had a chance to look it over. It's a big improvement. Got a lot of extra information in here. There's commentary on every page.
Good.
there's 3 books for people that need big print.
Well, if you got the soft cover, it's 3 books.
They're really heavy.
Yeah, that's what I said. He wants to carry around 3 books.
I've got to call Rhoda and tell her we have her books. I forgot.
What?
Let me say, if you use this book correctly, it's going to enhance the experience.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's
Spiritual.
Yeah, with the left column of commentary, any gray area you have, you're gonna be clear about what the meaning is. It's a big jump.
Well, you've got to keep your eye on the rabbi and make sure he does it properly.
Now, I saw part of it last week, but I didn't see the beginning. I forgot about it. By the time I got on, it was too late, but I want to see the beginning.
Hello, CH.
Gary, how's your mom doing?
Oh, she's good. Thank you for asking. She's great.
Good. I've got to call the house, Margolis, let them know I have their book.
Do you want to watch it here or the other room?
The other room's more comfortable. If we could see if you can set it up.
What's it on for sure?
Neil says this is a great book.
No, so my question was, where did you go into the shore and find it?
No, the rabbi has wrote a note yesterday about.
You're all right, man. All right, what did you get into?
About the rabbi's message from yesterday.
Where is it?
Oh, he sent a letter, me a letter.
Hello, Charlotte.
Ever, it was nice getting to know you the other week.
Say what?
I said it was nice getting to know you the
Oh,
other
is it-
week.
Who's
Person.
who's talking? I can't
Oh.
tell.
Barbara.
Barbara. Oh, yes. It was nice singing next to you. Did you do your homework?
Not hardly.
We didn't get the sheets that we were supposed to get. Maybe we'll
Hi,
get it
everybody.
tomorrow. Hey,
Hello.
can I have your autograph, Rabbi Rosenthal?
Am I that famous?
I saw a smoking guitarist on Limud, and it looked like you.
Oh my gosh. Yes, it was me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I had no idea you were that good.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I really
It was an interesting gig. It was an interesting gig. I drove a long way to play, and it wasn't a whole lot of playing. So
wow. We need to get a band together.
I'll look forward to that. Okay. Everybody talk amongst yourself. I just finished a meeting, so I apologize for being a few minutes late, but I'm going to get myself together and get everything up. So keep talking amongst yourself. I'll be right back.
Okay.
A whole bunch of people.
Your hair looks different.
David Diamond, are you related to Marjorie? David?
David is, maybe he's,
Maybe he stepped away.
yeah. How are you, Charles?
I'm doing well, thank you. I just came from physical therapy.
Right.
Did you get your ears lowered?
Oh, no, I don't have to get my ears lowered. I don't have any hair.
Oh, you look pretty slick today.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Charles.
Who's that?
Yeah, we can't tell who's talking.
Unless you look quickly at the yellow, there's a yellow
Oh, is that-
lines around the box when someone's talking.
It's Barbara.
Oh, hey,
Hi.
Barbara. Got to see you twice in a week, really. Because it was last Thursday we had our meeting, right? Yeah.
Hey, Rhoda, we have your books.
Well, can I ask this question? Does anyone know Marjorie Diamond?
No.
Okay, I'm a docent. I'm a head of the Sunshine Fund Committee for the docents at the Bremen Museum. And I found out she had a stroke and I want to send something, but I don't know to whom. I have to find that out. I thought maybe she was related to David.
It's the one about the new books. I haven't been to the other one yet. Oh, all right, bye-bye.
Hi, Evie.
Okay,
Okay, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for your patience here. So I want to pick up where we were, but I want to give, because we have some new people, I want to give us a little bit of a connection of where we are. If you have your Machzor and you want to do this the old-fashioned way, feel free to go to page 13 of your new Machzor. That's the page I'm going to put on the screen, so you don't need it, but you'll have it. And what we're gonna look at two things. We're gonna spend some time, and we might actually, depending on how vibrant the conversation is, we might end up spending a lot of time on this piece and not a whole lot on the next section that I wanted to look at. But what I did was I chose what's called the Kedusha. So on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur, we end during the week, every day of the week, the center part of our prayer experience is a prayer called the Amidah. Amidah literally means to stand, and it is the time that we stand in front of God, as it were, and we pray. And it's a very personal and communal experience. And the Amidah, the standing devotional prayer, like I said, means standing, is made up of a cluster of prayers. During the week, on a normal weekday, it's made up of 19 prayers. On Shabbat and holidays, it's made up of 7 prayers that put together makes the Amidah. On Rosh Hashanah is the only one in which it's made up of 9 prayers on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah Musaf, so that's the additional prayer service on Rosh Hashanah morning. It's made up of 9, but otherwise, most of the time it's either 19 during the week or 7. And there's number 3, blessing number 3 is about holiness. It's called Kedusha. You might have heard that. You might have heard that term before, like when we do the Kedusha, right? It talks about God's holiness. And one of the things that makes the High Holiday meaningful but also complicated is that the High Holiday prayer book, particularly our Machzor, works like an accordion, right? On the weekday, the accordion is sandwiched together. It's like really pressed together. And on holidays, when we have nowhere to go because it's a holiday, whether it's Shabbat or Rosh Hashanah years before, it's extended out, and really the bellow is really drawn out, right? And so, and the image, of course, of that is that the rabbi just filled each of these sections with all types of prayers. So what I showed last time is that the smallest, tiniest Kedusha prayer is only 2 sentences long. But when you get on Shabbat, you have an extended version of it. And when you get to the high holidays, it's really, really long. And that's important because the extensions, the additions, tells us what the holiday's about. It tells us what we're supposed to be focusing on and what we're supposed to be praying. What's our posture in prayer? So what we looked at is the smallest Kedusha, and then what Rosh Hashanah in the evening service, which is not a service that's said out loud. It's the Rosh Hashanah version of the smallest Kedusha service. When you get into the morning services and you actually repeat the Amidah out loud, you'll see that it extends out even more and more and more. It gets longer and longer and longer. But we're looking at the evening one. So I'm going to put it on the screen. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's all blurry for me. Can everybody see it? Can I get a thumbs up if it looks clear?
Blurry.
There it is.
There.
How about now? It's better?
Yes.
It's too light.
It's too light. What does that mean?
It means it's
Hard to see.
it's hard to read.
It's hard to read. I don't know if I can.
What
Did you darken it?
Tilt your screen back.
It's possible. Yeah, possible. You may need to. I don't think I have that. I'm not that sophisticated with the screen, so I don't think I can make it darker.
Okay, it worked. Whatever.
Okay. So in the Amidah, we start with Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak. I think many of us are familiar with that. If you're not, no worries. That's blessing number 1. Blessing number 2. Atagi Borle Olam Adonai Mechayem Etima Tarab Leoshia. By the way, I'm singing Shabbat melodies. On the high holidays, it's got a different melody, right? Just like on the weekdays, it's got a different melody. The Kedusha is the smallest version of Kedusha is very simple. Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh Ukdoshim b'chol yom Yahallelu Selah. You are holy and your name is holy. Those who how is it translated here? Holy ones praise you each day. That's a little tough here with just the few words we have. But Ukdoshim b'chol yom Hallelujah Selah. Right. So those who are holy on each day, they will Yahalua, they will praise you, Selah, which is a confusing word, and nobody really knows what Selah means. It might be a choir instruction, who knows? And then you get to the end, Baruch Atah Adonai. On weekday, you say Ha'el HaKadosh. You would say, blessed are you, Adonai, Ha'el, one of the names of God, who is holy. Here you say Hamelech HaKadosh, holy king, holy sovereign. So that's a substantial change. But you probably notice I just skipped over all this stuff. And that's the accordion effect I'm talking about. On a regular weekday,
Give you a page number?
the Kedusha is very, very simple. Atah kadosh v'shem hakadosh u'kedoshim b'chol yom yalu hasalah, baruch atah Adonai, ha-melech hakadosh, or ha-el hakadosh. So what does all this stuff in the middle have to do? And what we focused on last time, and again, I'm going quickly because we did this all last time, so I'm sorry to go by so quickly, but don't worry, we'll be able to jump into the
13.
It gets into the section where it says uvachein. So you see this word? You even see it over here in the English. Uvachein. And here, interestingly, in our book, it's not translated. Other books will translate it. It'll say something like "and therefore," and or because of.
Pictures are in the way.
Dick and Barbara, I'm not able to mute people, but if you want to mute yourself because you're kind of talking over me, if that's okay. Uvachein ten pochtecha. Uvachein, and therefore, or because of God, our God, you instill awe in all that you've made. This first uvachein, right? There's one here, there's two here, and number three is here. And so you have this section of uvachein, uvachein, uvachein. And it gave us a structure of what holiness is on these high holy days. Right? The first one had to do with God's holiness is bound up in us having awe of all of creation, having awe of God, right? That, or in fear of God. That's another word for awe, right? That's the first element of creation that the high holidays wants us to be focused on. Number two is God's holiness is tied up in the honor that is given, right? Bestow honor or our request. Praise are those who revere you, hope in those who seek you, right? It's us who give God honor by giving honor to God, by praising God. That speaks to God's holiness. And then the last piece was an interesting uvachein, where it made like a real strong request of God. It said uvachein, the righteous behold, because of God's holiness, righteous will rejoice. The upright will be glad. Ooh, there we go. Will be glad. The pious will celebrate with song. And then so it gave three: righteous, upright, and pious. And then it gave three, the other side: evil, wickedness, and the tyranny of arrogance. We ended our last class last week noting that in the first half of this, the righteous people, the upright people, and the pious, those are individual groups. And God willing, I pray that all of you fall into one of those groups, right? What it didn't do, which was interesting, is it didn't say evil people. It didn't say wicked people. It didn't say tyranny of arrogant tyrants. Instead, it talks about that behavior. So that was kind of an interesting switch that this does, right? It could have talked about evil people, but it didn't. It just talked about evil. And we'll look at the side in a second. We'll talk about that in a second. And then it returns to a typical Kedusha, which is this part right here, which is something that we see on Shabbat. V'timloch ata Adonai levadecha v'al kol ma'asecha b'har Tzion mishkon kevadecha u'v'Yerushalayim ercha kodshecha. You alone, Adonai, will rule all your creation. Mount Zion, the dwelling place of your glory, of Jerusalem, the holy city. And then, as it is written, and then this is probably familiar for some of us who come on Shabbat. Yimloch Adonai leolam Elohai Tzion ledor vador. Hallelujah. Right, and that's the same verse from Psalms that we read on any Shabbat of the year. Right, so it went with this accordion. It gave us all this new way of thinking about God's holiness, having fear and honor, and sweep away evil and celebrate with the righteous. It gave us this new interpretation of holiness, and then it returned back to the kind of the regular holiness, which we're all familiar with, which many of us are familiar with who come on Shabbat. So you kind of see how that accordioned out. Let me pause there for a second and see if there's any. I went super quick. I know, I apologize, but again, we did this all last week, so I don't want to take up too much time. Any questions or thoughts before we get on to the new material for today? And just unmute yourself. I can't see everybody. No? Okay.
Rabbi, I have one comment. It's not about the content,
Yeah.
but I guess I didn't realize that this was a course. I thought each day you were going to go through how to use this.
I am. Do not
But I
worry.
didn't know it was like a progression, or I would have,
No worries, no worries. It was supposed to be, but we ended up running out of time because you all had so many questions and stuff like that. So I wanted to pick up because we didn't get last time to actually how to use the book. But don't worry about it. You just got the whole gist of it. So feel good. You guys are good. You didn't waste as much time as everybody else did who came last week. You guys are efficient with your time. So good job. So keep that in mind. Holiness for the high holidays, God's holiness is tied up in our having awe and fear of God, however you want to define that. By God bestowing honor and us bestowing honor onto God. And the third one is by the righteous celebrating and all evil being swept away from whatever that looks like. That is how God is tied. That's how God's holiness is expressed on these high holy days. That might not be the way that it feels during the rest of the year, but on the high holidays, that's sort of the posture and the hope we want to have. Okay? So now let's take a look at the book, and I want to show you, now that you've read the prayers just as they are, and you've gotten something like that from just reading the regular prayers, and by the way, if you were to go into your old Machzor, you'd find the same prayers, right? This new Machzor doesn't do a whole, it does add some prayers back and use other prayers, but it's a lot of the same prayers as the other Machzor had, and many other Machzors have. What's innovative about this book is the way that the book is paginated, right? The way that it lays out the Hebrew, but then also the commentary. So now let's take a look at the commentary here, okay? So let's focus. Let me just share my screen, hold on. Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay.
Yes.
So now let's take a look at this one. This one right here. This is the last of the Uvachains. Remember, I said there were 3 of them. And this last one was a little different than the 2 before, whereas the 2 before talked about us having awe and giving honor to God and God giving honor to us. This last one kind of talks about what will the end result be. If we are given honor, or if we give honor to God, if we have fear and awe of God, then we will rejoice, we will be glad, we will sing. Hopefully we'll do all of that on the high holidays. But then what about this last piece right here? Evil will be silenced. All the wicked will disappear like smoke. You will be, when you remove the tyranny of arrogance from the earth. That's what we're asking God to do. We're saying, God, this is what will happen when you do those things. And remember, I just brought up that kind of interesting liturgical change in that we're not talking about people, we're talking about actions, right? We're talking about, when we're talking about good people, we're talking about groups of people, but when we're talking about evil things, we're not talking about people. We're not ever blaming anybody for being that type of person. We're not saying that they are intrinsically evil. Let's come up here. Let's look at this quote here on Martin Buber. Again, if you're on page 13 in our book, you'll find it there, right? After you've read this prayer, after you've prayed this, you come and look at the margin. Now, last time we talked a little bit about it. On this side, these margin notes give you a little bit of insight into the words of the prayer, right? What does Uvachain mean, right? How is it structured? These 3 paragraphs, which are introduced, have the same word, right? I just talked about that. But if you go over to this left side, it stops giving you insight into the words and into the structure of the prayer, and instead starts to give you a little bit of a deeper, and maybe even, if I may say, a richer understanding of what the prayer is trying to get across. So what do we have here? Neil Yarm, could you read for us this first one from Martin Buber?
All wicked will disappear?
No, go above that. May all be bound together.
Got it. Okay. The purpose of creation is not division nor separation. The purpose of the human race is not a struggle to the death between classes, between nations. Humanity is meant to become a single body. Our purpose is the great upbuilding of unity and peace. And when all nations are bound together in one association, living in justice and righteousness, they atone for each other.
Okay, so what's Martin Buber saying? Who wants to try to paraphrase that for us? Summarize it. Anybody, please just unmute yourself. Again, I can't see everybody.
It sounds like if uniting all nations together makes global peace, and it would be nice if we could do that.
Yeah, okay, so it would be beautiful if we could do that. Martin Buber is definitely given a very universalistic view of peoplehood, right? That we belong to to humanity, and that our job is not to fight to the death with those people, with other people. We're supposed to come together and build unity and peace. And how is that expressed? Let's take a look at this first one. How is that expressed here? Do you see that expressed, or do you think Martin Buber is disagreeing with what's being expressed in this part of the prayer? What do you think?
It makes me wonder, according to the first paragraph, Adonai our God, he will instill awe in all of his creatures. So because there is no unity today, does that mean that he did not instill awe in everybody? And why not?
Yeah. So interestingly, these two paragraphs are butting heads, right? If you look at this from a universalist to a particularist point of view. So what do I mean? Deborah just said it. Instill your awe in all you have made, and fear of you in all you have created. This is universalistic, right? Everything you've created, God, instill in it an acknowledgement of you, awe of you. That's this one. But look what happens here, right? This is talking about the Jewish Messiah. This is talking about, it's talking about recognition of those who await you, joy in your land, right? Gladness in your city. May the light of David, your servant, dawn. This is all about talking about King David and the Messianic age. This is particular for Jews, but brings with it a particular universalistic peace over the world. So this first, someone wants to say something?
Yeah, is that concept of the Messiah that he only comes for us, or is it for the whole world?
Well, it does come for the whole world, we hope, right? But he does come through us, through, King David, through that line. But okay, so Eve is actually bringing up a good point. Is this part, I'm saying it's particularistic, is this universalistic? Eve might be bringing up a good point. How do you read this? Do you read this as talking about just the Jews? Or do you believe this is talking, because this paragraph is clearly not talking about just the Jews. I mean, it uses the word creation here, right? All you've created, all you've made. What about this next piece? Who's on the Eve camp that it's universalistic? Who's on the Lawrence camp that it's particularistic?
I think it's particularistic.
You think it might be particularistic?
Yeah, I think that you need to do this, even though it may bestow the blessings on everyone. The Jews have to be the leaders.
Okay, Steve, you want to say? I see. Remember, I can't see everybody, so please, don't wait for me to let you speak.
Well, it starts off, bestow honor to your people, Adonai. And so I think, what our immediate reaction to that might be, your people. Oh, who's that? That's us. But then it goes on and says, praise to those who revere you, hope to those who seek you, recognition to those who await you, joy to your, which could be anybody. It doesn't have to be us in particular. And then joy to your land, gladness to your city. But again, those things, we can be particularistic about it, but we also could say this could be anybody.
Well, see, I see it differently because, those who revere you, talking about Adonai, and that's the God of the Jews. And I see it as referring to those who believe in our Jewish God. So that's why I said I saw it as particularistic, but it's just, my thoughts.
Okay. what do you think Buber's doing? Is Buber a uvachain number 1, or is Buber a uvachain number 2? I guess it depends on how you view the second one, right? If this is particularistic or universalistic. I'm guessing that, if Buber was going to read this, who knows if Buber is writing? Clearly Buber isn't writing for this Machzor. He died a long time ago, right? But the way this is being put in, you could either say that this reading right here is helping us see all of this as universalistic, right? Because Buber is. Or you could say that it is acknowledging that there's a balance, and Buber is pushing us to the universalistic side, right? People see that? People disagree? What do you think? Again, remember, I can't see y'all.
I think you're right. Clearly, Buber is universalistic, but I think that that second paragraph is more particular.
Okay.
The Jews.
Right. So this paragraph in particular might be pushing us in that way. Everybody want to know what the right answer is? Does everybody want to know? There is none.
Yeah.
We'll wait for the Messiah.
Yes.
Rabbi, I wish one thing that they put the date. That would have been helpful for each of these, for all the different commentaries. It would be nice if it had a date.
No doubt. I hear you.
Yeah.
When they revise it.
I think though this, it's an interesting, there are two interesting perspectives here. So the way I make sense of this is that clearly we're here on Rosh Hashanah, and it's in our Torah. It's very much particular to us, the Jewish people. But it's interesting that it opens up by pointing out that, in fact, God is the God of all humanity. And we can't just worry about ourselves.
Yeah.
But there's a responsibility that goes beyond that. And I think this sort of goes back to the, being the light unto the nations, and you shall be holy and make other people holy. So that's part of the responsibility of what we bear in this season.
100%. Okay. Let's go down here and let's take a look at this. So remember, uvachain number 1, uvachain number 2, uvachain number 3, and uvachain number 3 has a very different feel to it. Whereas we could argue about universalistic up here to particularistic down here, and we could say that these are complementing each other or leading from one to another. This last one is really quite different in that it says that the first one is, God, because of this, will be that because of this, this. The last one really lays it out like, God, if all this was to happen, this is what the world would look like, right? Or this is what we pray that the world looks like. Righteous rejoicing, upright will be glad, the pious will celebrate with song, evil will be silenced, wickedness will disappear like smoke, and when you remove the tyranny of arrogance from the earth. And if you remember what I started with and what we left with last time was how, again, and in the Hebrew it's even more pronounced. If we go over here to the Hebrew, tzadikim, right? You might have even heard that term again. This is a participle. You take the word tzedek, litzdok, and which is a verb, and you make it into a participle, saying that these are a certain type of people we call righteous, the righteous ones, right? Yesharim, these are the straight ones, right? The ones who straight on their path, right? And Hasidim, these are the loving, compassion ones, right? Or the pious ones, okay? These are groups of people, okay? And it's very purposeful in how it uses these verbs in that way. Not verbs, they make them nouns, and they use it as groups of people. And you see it even in the ending, right? Sadikim, im, yud mem, right? Yud mem right there, yud mem. Yud mem, im. It's a plural form for this group of people. Okay, but then we get down to the verbs, if you will, of the evil. Right? It doesn't do that anymore. It doesn't say olatim, for instance. Right? It doesn't call the evil ones. It says evil. Right? It doesn't say the wicked. It doesn't say rashaim. right? Which should be this word if we were talking about a group. It says Rasha'ah, wicked, right? Wickedness, if you will. And it doesn't say tyrants. It says Memshelet Zadon, right? A government of Zadon is like, what are they translating Zadon as? Arrogance. That's a weird, I wouldn't, okay, whatever. They're smarter than I am, so arrogance is fine. Memshelet, like a government of tyranny, right? Which you could say is a group of people, but here it's not. I mean, it's still going with that. It's still leaving it open, right? As it's rightfully translated, right? The tyranny of arrogance. It's not arrogant people, it's arrogance that all people have. God sweep all that away. Let's take a look at what, yeah, who's that? Somebody say something, want to share? Okay. Let's take a look at the comment, the intention that it provided here, and see how that affects or enhances or highlights what we're doing. Shelley Dollar, are you able to read for us? All wicked will disappear. Make sure you unmute yourself.
Okay, can you put all wickedness will disappear. There were once some lawless men who caused Rabbi Meir a great deal of trouble. Rabbi Meir accordingly prayed that they should die. His wife, Beruriah, said to him, "How can you think that such a prayer is permitted? When sin ceases, there shall be no more wicked people. Therefore, pray for them that they turn from their ways, and there will be no more wicked people." Then he prayed on their behalf.
Okay, so what is the Babylonian Talmud Brachot? What is this story? By the way, anybody who took my Talmud class, we actually studied this piece. It was a lot of fun. What is it bringing to this particular story? Kind of led you to it, but hopefully you'll unpack it even more. Anybody want to add in?
Well, I think that the wife is separating evil from evil people, and the evil will disappear. I mean, I think all of us have evil in us, and we want to pray that that's eradicated, that we are no longer evil, or that the people that we know that are even more evil are less evil. But she's saying you don't pray for people to die, and actually that doesn't eliminate evil, it just eliminates people.
There's a really not a very good expression that gets used a lot in with my Christian brothers and sisters. They say, hate the sin, not the sinner, right? Which is a terrible way to say it, because now you're calling people sinners. Like, you're putting them into the category that the prayer is specifically telling us, don't make that category, right? But the better way to say it is, hate the sin, don't indict the people, right? Why wipe out the behavior? Don't. So I mean, it's really bad. So what is Talmud Brachot? What is this little reading helping us to pull out?
There's always a purpose of a promise of someone, repenting from their evil ways.
Sure. Right. Okay. So good.
Rabbi, can I ask a question about the first part of that paragraph about righteous, upright, and pious?
Yes.
In order to be righteous and pious, is the definition different for Jews and non-Jews? In other words, to be pious in Judaism or righteous, you have to follow the 613 commandments.
Yes.
Do the non-Jews just have to follow the Noahide commandments to be righteous, pious, and upright?
So that would be the halachic view of that. If you're going to come into a rabbinic community, that's what they would have understood. I think, right? But I mean, some of the early writings, and it's not necessarily defined by the Torah or the Bible itself, or what makes a righteous person, other than being good, however you define that. Later on, the rabbis defined it by the 7 Noahide laws for all the nations, and the 613 commandments for the Jews. Right? So, but yeah, and interestingly, it doesn't. I mean, again, depending on the two uvechains above, will help you to understand. Here, are we talking universalistically or are we talking particularistically? Right? It doesn't say B'nai Yisrael will be glad and rejoice. It doesn't say, the children of Yehuda will be blessed. It gives this kind of vague category. Righteous, the upright, the pious. Could be of anybody. Could be any people. So this could be an extension of kind of a universalistic idea. And then on Rosh Hashanah, we are asking for God to wipe out all evil and bring goodness to the entire world. It's possible we're asking that. But that will depend on how you read these prayers, how you understand the side comments, and what you bring in your prayer. Because ultimately, God's not listening necessarily to the prayers and the ideas that the rabbis prayed and wrote 1,000 years ago. They're listening. God is listening to your prayers and your heart on Rosh Hashanah this year. So whatever is in your heart and in your prayers is what God is putting into consideration for the year to come, right? So that's why these side comments become so important. How are you focusing your heart and your mind and your soul on this day? Okay. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Yes.
Rabbi, in today's world,
go back from here for a second. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
In today's world that we're facing right now, the last sentence says, when you remove the tyranny. Isn't it really up to us to remove this tyranny? Are we relying on God to stop what's going on in today's world where people won't even talk to one another?
Say that again. For some reason.
The last sentence says, when you remove the tyranny of arrogance from this earth, are we saying we're depending on God to do that, or is that us to do that?
Well, somebody answered Dick's question. I don't need to answer everything, do I?
No. In today's
I don't know all the answers. What do y'all think?
Well, if it has a capital Y for you, I assume that's not us.
But it should be us.
I think I would agree with Dick. I think the text says, you, meaning God, but I would tend to agree with Dick in that it's really our responsibility, because the tyranny and the arrogance is coming from humanity. So it's really humanity's responsibility for us to clean up our own act, to get our act together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's this little something different here, because if you look at the previous paragraph, which is more particular in the line, may the light of David, your servant dawn, and the lamp of the son of Jesse, your anointed, be kindled speedily in our day. That's messianic language. And I see this as a prayer to say, bring the Messiah. And therefore, this third paragraph, it is God who will remove the tyranny, because that's what we're looking at the Messiah to do, to change this world, to change the entire world. We won't have this arrogance, we won't have this tyranny, but it's up to us to make the world ready to receive the Messiah. We really have our own role to play in this.
And what the Talmud Brachot, with a comment on the side, helps us to put in our mind is that the first step is to direct your prayers in the proper way. And Bruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir, helps us understand that, right? Don't pray for the demise of people, to pray for their behavior to improve. Pray that they will feel or develop compassion. Pray for all those other things, but don't pray for the death of people. Right, which is what Rabbi Meir was praying for. There were hoodlums in his neighborhood. In fact, the Talmud's really interesting in that the way it presents it didn't even present that these were like terrible people. It just presented it in the Talmud as they were annoying to him. Now, of course, when we think about evil people, we go to the top shelf, right? We think ISIS, right? We think of white supremacists, right? We think of all these top shelf people. But let's be honest, we spend most of our day wishing ill of people who are not even close to that top shelf. We're thinking ill of the person in the cubicle next to us who just brought in a stinky lunch, right? That's who we're thinking ill about. And so we've got to really be careful with our prayers in that way. And that's like the first step. Direct your heart in the right direction, and then, God willing, our behavior will follow. Right? Okay. I want to go to the bottom of the blessing, because there's something really substantial and interesting about what's going to come at the very end, what we call the Hatima. So let's take a look here. Okay. So, sorry, I'm just going to move this out of the way. Okay. So what do we have here? We have the end of the Kedusha, the verses of holiness, to end our section, the third blessing of the Amidah, which is about God's holiness, and we get to what we call the Hatima. Baruch atah Adonai. Whenever you have the Baruch atah Adonai, you know that's either the very beginning or the very end of a blessing, and we're transitioning to a new issue, new prayer, I guess you call it. So Baruch atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh. So what comes right above it? Some of it's familiar, but what's really interesting is what's not familiar. You know, what got added. So what do we have? Kadosh atah v'norah shimcha ve'ein Eloha mi baladecha. So what does it say here? You are holy, your name is revered, for there is no God but you. This is very familiar for the high holidays. As your prophet wrote in Isaiah. Okay. So always pause whenever we get a quote from Bible. Here's something that's really kind of difficult about Jewish prayer. The rabbis who wrote the prayer, put the prayer book together. Remember, it's all cut and paste. The rabbis love this. They expected you to know what this quote is. And not only do they expect you to be able to translate it, they expect you to know the exact context it comes in. And on top of that, once you know the exact context that quote comes from, they expect you to know the rabbinic way of understanding that exact context and how they reread the prophets and other pieces of the Bible. They expect you to know all that, so that when you get to that line, you go, oh, I get it. Yeah, that's whoever, that's Jeremiah. And of course that's the famous story of Jeremiah with the and I remember that Rabbi Yehuda back in Babylon said this about that verse from Jeremiah, right? There's an expectation you know that. What's the problem?
You don't.
And guess what? Either do I, right? And I went to rabbinical school. I've got debt because of my learning, right, of this stuff, and I don't even know it, right? It is really, really complicated. Right? But it's really important to pause and to say, well, what is that? So how could our prayer book, how could our Machzor help us understand where that quote is coming from? As your prophet, it tells you, Isaiah wrote, right? Could anybody find in the book where in Isaiah that's from?
5:16.
5:16. Oh, look at that, Sepharia. Boom. Now we have 5:16 up in front of us. There it is. Vayigba Adonai Tzefaot b'mishpat v'ha'el hakadosh nikdash bitzdaka. Okay, and the Lord of hosts is exalted by judgment. The holy God proved holy by retribution. Okay, now it's very possible that the rabbis cut and pasted this verse from Isaiah because it says kadosh. We're talking about the Kedusha. Isaiah says Kadosh. Okay, there you go. End of story. That's possible. Okay, it's possible that's why they grabbed that verse, because it uses the exact word we're trying to ascribe to God, God's holiness, Kadosh, right?
But it also has Hashem Tzivaot, which Tzivaot is placing, depending on whose construction you see, is either the Shekhinah or it's Yisod.
Okay, so there's there's definitely, I mean, you could bring that all in. They definitely grabbed a lot of this stuff because of mystical readings and Kabbalistic readings, because they were all
They were all capitalists.
yeah, it all permeated in there, but no doubt, right? First of all, do notice how someone read the translation in our book of this verse from Isaiah.
You are holy and your name is revered, for there is no God but you. As your prophet Isaiah wrote, Adonai Tsevaot will be exalted through justice, the holy God sanctified through righteousness.
Okay. I don't know about you, but like what how Safaria is translating this is completely different. Like I read it completely differently from that. And personally, I like our prayer book more than I like this. But what's the backstory? Remember, they grabbed it from Isaiah 16. What came before chapter 5, verse 16? What came before Isaiah chapter 5, verse 16?
Those are verses about the difference between chesed, between doing acts of kindness and just doing things by rote. Is that what it comes before?
It could be. It could be. The answer I was looking for was Isaiah chapter 5, verse 15 comes before 16. And then what comes before 15? 16. But you're very right. So let's roll all back to the beginning of Isaiah and take a look. Joe Marcus, could you read for us? I'm gonna move this all to English. Has anybody heard before that I love Safaria?
What page is this, Rabbi?
Well, say that again?
What page is this in the book?
This is not a page. This is a website that is not. We're actually, this is the equivalent, everybody. So let me explain this. This is the equivalent if you brought a Bible with you to services, and when you got to that quote and you looked at the bottom of page 13 and you said, oh, that's Isaiah 5:19 or 5:16, you opened up Isaiah and you read chapter 5. That's what we're doing right now. Because like I said, what's happening is that the rabbis who put this verse in the Machzor think you know what it means, right? So let's take a quick read. Joe, I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm just going to let you go.
In that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own food and wear our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name. Take away our disgrace. In that day, the radiance of the Lord will lend beauty and glory, and the splendor of the land will give dignity and majesty to the survivors of Israel. And those who remain in Zion and are left in Jerusalem, all who are inscribed for life in Jerusalem shall be called holy.
Wait a second. Sorry, we're reading the wrong thing. We're reading chapter 4. Sorry about that, Joe. Keep going. Start again, chapter 5.
Forget what I just said.
Yeah, I was like, this doesn't seem familiar, but it's great. It's good stuff. Hey, go start from here.
Let me sing for my beloved a song of my lover about his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a fruitful hill. He broke the ground, cleared of stones, and planted it with choice vines. He built a watchtower inside it. He even hewed a winepress in it, for he hoped it would yield grapes. Instead, it yielded wild grapes. Now then, dwellers of Jerusalem and men of Judah, you be the judges between me and my vineyard. What more could I have done for my vineyard that I failed to do in it? Why, when I hoped it would yield grapes, did it yield wild grapes? Now I am going to tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will remove its hedge that it may be ravaged. I will bring down its wall that it will be trampled, and I will make it a desolation. I shall not be pruned or hoed, and it shall be overgrown with briars and thistles. I will command the clouds to drop rain on it.
To not drop rain on it.
To
drop no rain on it.
To drop no rain on it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the seedlings, the lovingly tended, are the men of Judah. And the men of Judah, and he hoped for justice, but behold injustice, for iniquity, but behold iniquity. Equity, but behold iniquity. Those who add house to house and join field to field, till there is room for none but you to dwell in the land. In my hearing, said the Lord of hosts, such great houses shall lie forlorn, spacious and splendid ones without occupants. For 10 acres of vineyard shall yield just one bath. One bath?
Yeah, it doesn't know how to translate the word. That's why it's
one hot. And a field sown with a homer of seed shall yield mere ephah. Those who chase liquor from early in the morning until late in the evening are inflamed by wine. Who at their banquets have lyre and flute, timbrel, flute, and wine, but who never give a thought to the plan of the Lord and make no note of what he is designing. Actually, my people will suffer exile for not giving heed, in multitude victims of hunger, and its masses parched with thirst.
We're almost there, everybody.
Assuredly, Sheol has opened wide its gullet and parted its jaws with a meaningless gape.
Measureless gape.
A measureless gape. And down into it shall go that splendor and tumult, that din and revelry. Yea, man is bowed and mortals brought low by the pride of the haughty. And the Lord of hosts is exalted by judgment, the Holy One proved holy by retribution.
And there's the verse, okay? So first of all, take a deep breath. That was an awful lot. Thank you, Joe. You did a great job, right? So now you know the story of the vineyard, the metaphor of the vineyard, right? From Isaiah. And when we get to that part of the prayer book, it expects you to have some concept of the story. So now you have some concept of the story. Could somebody quickly summarize the story?
God planted a beautiful vineyard, did everything possible for it to flourish and grow. And instead of producing good grapes that could make good wine, it produced wild grapes, which were used for making wine. And this becomes the analogy for the Jewish people who have not appreciated all that God gave them. And so just like the vineyard became parched and fell apart, so will the Jewish people.
So it ties very much to our behavior, right? The world in the course of the world and our lives. And so when we get to the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, it has elements of this, of the kind of Yom Kippur idea in it. And this verse kind of reminds us of that, and if it's just read by itself, it's very much Adonai Zevaot will be exalted through justice, and holy God sanctified through righteousness. So what is it saying? After it told us that we will have awe and fear, after it tells us that we will give honor, the way in which we will truly make God holy is by our righteous behavior, by us not taking the blessings that we have and squandering them. Right? That's one way you can understand the story. You don't have to understand the story in my way, by the way. But what you need to know is you need to understand the story, and you need to get to this part of this kedusha. And when you get to those two moments, you then put it all together and you say, for this Rosh Hashanah, this is what this means. This is what this verse means. God will be, after all these things, it's not just about the fear that I have, it's about I have to do good in the world, righteousness in the world. Some people might say I have to obey the commandments, right? Others might say I have to participate in tikkun olam. However you understand that, as far as bringing justice to the world, that's how God will be exalted. And that's where God's holiness is tied up. And then how does it end? Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, God, Hamelech HaKadosh. And that last line is also important because that's a change from the rest of the year. Whereas most of the time you say Ha'el HaKadosh, Ha'el being one of the names of God, Ha'el. Hamelech means God is sovereign, a holy sovereign, right? God is the holy king. And that ties very much into what we're doing on the high holidays, which we are still installing, coronating God on the throne of judgment and the throne of compassion. That's where we are placing God and saying God is now our sovereign. And so that gets tied up in that. Let me pause there. Any thoughts?
I was thinking about the last story about the vineyard and whatnot. It sort of reminded me of a verse from the story of I can't remember now, but the phrase "vanity, vanity, always vanity."
Mm-hmm.
If you are only
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes.
Kohelet. Yeah.
Thomas Hardy, the writer, the English writer, who used that as sort of a foreword in his famous book. I can't remember the name. Anyway.
Bonfire of the Vanities.
Yeah. No.
That's Thomas Wolfe, I think, right?
No, it was Thomas.
Okay.
Way back.
Okay.
I'll remember it afterwards. That when all you are focused on are the outward accoutrements of life, that you're bound to fail, and that you need a different focus.
Yeah. And here, God is truly made holy by the justice that we bring into the world, right? Not only through our own actions, but by the justice we encourage in others. That's how I read it. That's how I understand the story. Now, again, high holidays are difficult because it throws out these verses and it gives you an opportunity to look them up. But now you know at least one of them. So when you come to this verse from Isaiah, you know the story of the vineyard, you know basically what it's saying. And then it gives you an opportunity to dive even deeper into it. Again, remember, the rabbis didn't want you they not only wanted you to know the story, they also wanted you to know their interpretation of the story. They expected you to know that too. And sometimes those conflict with each other. We got to run to Minyan. Let me quickly tell you what's going to happen next. Rabbi Bluston is teaching this Saturday, right, during the Rebbe's Tish. I believe that's what it is. During lunch, he's going to be doing more of an overview of the Machzor. So we'll be looking at this again, and he'll be doing that 12:30 on Saturday. That's in person only, unfortunately. We don't have the technology to do this otherwise. So that'll be in person. And then he is teaching on the 18th, Sunday the 18th, on Sunday morning after morning minyan. And that'll be on Zoom or in person from the book as well. And then I am
Rabbi Rosenthal, your email says Sunday, September 11th with Rabbi Bluston.
Okay, there it is. Sunday. And then when's the Saturday?
No, that's Saturday the 10th. Yeah, this Saturday.
Okay,
like you said.
So great. So it's a packed weekend.
Yeah,
so Saturday and Sunday, after minyan and after Shabbat morning services. for that. Check out the e-blast that's coming out tomorrow. We'll have more details. And then I'm back on the 22nd.
21st,
21st?
Wednesday,
There you go.
Wednesday, the 21st.
Thank you.
So
So
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today, and that'll be my final session on it. And I believe we're going to look at the Unatana Tokef, but we may not. I'll email everybody ahead of time, and so you'll know what we're doing. And I look forward to studying with you a little bit more.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Yashikoa.
Okay, I'll see you soon.
Yashikoa.
Good to see everybody.
Krakoa.
Thank you.
Stay well, Steve.
That sounds like Linda.
He's like, we haven't left.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Okay.
Leave meeting.